Well, it's been almost a week now, my friends, and thank God, because if we taped the show the day it happened, I wouldn't be able to contain my rage or my language. I want you to look at a picture, because this picture is what the end of American freedom looks like. A man makes a movie about Muhammad, thinking, delusionally as it turns out, that here in America, our single greatest and most precious freedom, namely the defining concept that powers this reactor of creativity, the right to speak and say what you damn well think without fear of government arrest or murder, well, you'd think that right would protect him from this kind of intimidation, but he was wrong. This is not the America of our founding fathers or their ideals or their courage or their principles. This is thugocracy America. This is re-election America. This is Chicago machine America. This is Obama's America. So joining me now to help me retain what thin thread of sanity I have remaining after 4 years of Obama's America are Steve Green and Scott Ott. Scott, this film has been on YouTube for a month or two. So despite what the administration says, officials in Yemen and elsewhere say that these were well-prepared, coordinated attacks on U.S. embassies launched on the anniversary of 9/11. Therefore, the death of a U.S. ambassador, U.S. Marines, and embassy personnel is somehow the fault of a little man making a bad movie and not the result of the weakness, pandering, wishful thinking, and delusion of the Obama-Clinton foreign policy. Do I have that right?
Well, you know, the president of Libya himself said that this was a coordinated, organized attack that was planned for the anniversary of the worst terrorist attacks on U.S. soil. And he hinted that it was by foreigners who had come into the country since the Obama administration helped to overthrow the Gaddafi regime. So the Obama administration, of course, has it in their best interest now to make sure that nobody thinks the fact that we went in there and broke some glass has caused or spawned or made possible this problem. They've got to blame something. It is humiliating as an American to hear the guy who's supposed to be our chief executive officer, and in a way, he's not a king. He doesn't speak for the country. He can speak for the government. But to hear him essentially start going after one of our fundamental freedoms that was declared in the First Amendment, but that pre-existed the Constitution, for him to do this is abhorrent. It's unbelievable. I agree with Glenn Reynolds at Instapundit.com. He should resign.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll happen. Steve, you know, we're told that this filmmaker, whose name I'm not going to mention since he's being hunted down like a dog, has some priors and some parole violations, which is why they sent dozens of police officers at midnight to bring him in for voluntary questioning, and the fact that his so-called cause of this Middle East riots has embarrassed and discredited Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, the State Department, and the Defense Department, and I can't say this loudly enough, Obama's re-election chances, well, that has nothing to do with it, right? It's just standard operating procedure, 20 cops at midnight and no parole officer in sight, right? That's how you always deal with parole violations?
Yeah, and I'm the Pope of Siam. No, look, what this speaks to is the power of the First Amendment. Here's one guy. He seems to have kind of a tenuous grip on reality. I've seen his movie. It's the Be Kind rewind of Agitprop. This is not good filmmaking. It's not offensive filmmaking. It's kind of charming in just how terrible and awful it is. It might rise to the level of charmingly incompetent. And yet this guy was able to do all of this in the Middle East? Well, no, he didn't do all of that in the Middle East. That was the pretext. These attacks were planned, of course. But what he did with his one lonely kind of wacky voice was to get the entire executive branch of the federal government to rise up to slap him down. That is a powerful thing, and it's why they came after him, not because he was the pretext, but because the First Amendment gives all of us that power. He's the example, not for uppity filmmakers, but for all of us.
That's exactly correct. Scott, you know, any cursory reading of history shows that Islam has been at war not only with the West, but also with the entire world since its inception. So please explain to me, if you can now, how the President of the United States can lean on Google to pull down a video and detain a man for speaking his mind in order to pacify a region that we were promised was pacified by the ascension of the one true God in January of 2009.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he went over to Cairo and gave that beautiful speech talking about all the common values that we share with the people in the Muslim world and apologizing, in a sense, for the arrogance of the United States of America. Oh, how I dream of a president of the United States who, when something like this happened, would say, listen, the people in my country say what they please. And in fact, if you'd like to escape the monarchical, dictatorial, theocratic regime that you now live under and come over to our country, guess what? You can stand in the streets and preach Islam till the cows come home. You can say what you please in this country, and as long as you don't hurt somebody else's person or property, you have freedom and liberty. Come to us, all you who are weary and burdened by this kind of tyranny.
Yeah, but to have that kind of result, you'd have to have a president who was on our side, wouldn't you? Wouldn't that be one of the operating principles that you'd need in order to have a speech like that? Steve, how many of the big directors, I mean people who deliberately make controversial films, guys like Martin Scorsese and Steven Spielberg, Oliver Stone, and others, who by remaining silent in the face of this outrage should now and for the rest of their lives submit their films to a board of Yemeni savages to be sure that nothing in it hurts their feelings. And if it does hurt their feelings, they should be willing to gracefully submit to being placed in a police car at midnight by 20 or so sheriff's deputies, while images of their homes and directions to their families can be broadcast so that the offended can get their satisfaction.
You know, it's a real shame here. You're talking about some of my favorite filmmakers other than Oliver Stone. The only thing I think he did that I ever really liked was Talk Radio, which is a brilliant movie. But look, most of the time, these big Hollywood directors, they don't have to submit their movies for approval to anybody because they're already pre-approved. They come out of this liberal progressive groupthink system. I just watched the trailer for Spielberg's Lincoln movie that's coming out here just in time for the election. That you could practically you could practically have Christopher Walken off stage shouting "More portent," just awful, politically correct garbage, and they're talking about Lincoln, the man who won the Civil War, preserved the Union, and freed the slaves. Bill, they've already submitted. They're not standing up for anything, not one damn thing.
Yeah, that's right, Steve. And it makes you wonder, by the way, just parenthetically, if all the people on MSNBC were saying this guy needs to be arrested for making this movie, what if it was Steven Spielberg, and what if it was a $300 million movie on the life of Mohammed? Would they then be saying that Steven Spielberg needs to be arrested for what he's done? I think they probably wouldn't. But I'd actually like to have a quick word directly to Barry Soetoro, who swore an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States of America. In that document, Barry, you'll find an addendum called the Bill of Rights, and on that Bill of Rights, you'll find right at the top the foundational idea of this country, the document and the people that you swore to defend. You handed that most precious gift in the history of the world, the right to think and speak without fear, a right that's been defended and paid for by rivers of blood, to our mortal enemies in exchange for enough peace to get yourself reelected so that you can lie under that same oath again. I pray to God that there is a law of heaven higher and nobler and sterner than the laws that you trample down here on earth, because the willful violation of so sacred a trust over the graves of so many patriots and ripped from the hearts of a great and decent people who championed that freedom around the world deserves a punishment far richer than the one that you're going to receive this November when those self-same people have closed curtain behind them and finally unleash their righteous rage on what is without question the most dishonorable, treasonous, self-aggrandizing, evil bastard the office of the President of the United States has ever seen. For PJTV, I'm Bill Whittle.